بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وفي أموالهم حق معلوم للسائل والمحروم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما تصدق أحد بصدقة من طيب ولا يقبل الله إلا الطيب إلا أخذها الرحمن بيمينه وإن كانت تمرة تربو في كف الرحمن حتى تكون أعظم من الجبل أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's topic, as you can see from the PowerPoint, is in relation to Zakah. In terms of the importance of Zakah, the topic doesn't need any introduction. We are all aware that Zakah is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, one of the fundamental aspects of Islam. As for the relevance of Zakah, many of us, or even almost the majority of us, we calculate our Zakah and we give our Zakah in the month of Ramadan. So it's very important that before we calculate our Zakah and before we give our Zakah, we are aware of the various rulings and masail in relation to Zakah, so that when we fulfill this obligation and we discharge this obligation, we do it in a manner which pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why today's PowerPoint is going to cover the various rulings in relation to Zakah. Now, Zakah is generally quite a detailed and intricate subject. But today's PowerPoint, the aim is that we will try and keep it as simple as possible. And also, we will try and keep it as relevant to the 21st century as can be possible. So there are many masail, many rulings in relation to life which is not relevant to the 21st century, and especially us living in the UK. So all these masail and rulings will be missed out. Rather, we will discuss those issues that are prevalent and are applicable to the 21st century. Also, something to mention from the outset, the PowerPoint will be in accordance to the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and more precisely the mainstream position, the mufta bihi position of the school. There might be scholars who have their individual takes and opinions, but what we will discuss today in the PowerPoint will be the mufta bihi position of the Hanafi school of fiqh. So without further ado, we will move on to the first slide. A nice and gentle introduction. What is Zakah? What is the meaning of Zakah? Now, Zakah, in terms of its lexical meaning, what you would pick up in a dictionary, it has 2 meanings. One is increase and the other is purification. Now, how do these meanings link to Zakah? Quite simple. When a person gives Zakah, although there is a decrease in the actual wealth of that person, there is an increase in terms of the reward that person achieves and attains, And secondly, there is also an increase in terms of the barakah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places in the wealth of that individual. So a little wealth will go longer and will last longer and will suffice that individual. So that's the meaning of increase and the link to zakah. As for purification, how does zakah purify a person? It purifies a person from the evil effects of wealth, such as greed, and also it purifies a person's wealth from possible ill-gotten gains that it is quite possible a person himself is also not aware of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Quran, He says, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ, talking about the purification angle of zakah. So that's the meaning of zakah in terms of the dictionary. Islamically, we all know it's a payment made every year, every lunar year, and the payment is 2.5% of a person's wealth, and this money, this payment is given to the poor. Moving on. Now, this is a slide which I don't intend to go through. It has a Quran verse talking about the importance of paying zakah. There is also a hadith there about the warning and threat mentioned by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in relation to the non-payment of zakah. I'm not going to go into the details, and I will not go through the whole Quran verse and the hadith. Suffice to say that zakah is so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes reference to zakah in the Quran 82 times, and out of these 82 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions zakah immediately after salah. So this shows us the importance of zakah and how important it is that we discharge zakah and we give the correct amount of zakah, and we also give it to the correct recipients. Moving on, social benefits of zakah. I feel it's important that we spend a few minutes on this particular slide. Social benefits refer to those benefits that are felt and experienced by our communities and society at large. So when we as Muslims discharge our obligation of zakah, what benefits does society receive? Okay, so the first one is redistribution of wealth. What that means is, if zakah was not discharged by the rich, and when I say rich, I don't mean rich from our perspective, I mean rich from the perspective of Islam and Sharia. So when zakah is discharged by a rich person, then that wealth goes into the hands of the poor. If zakah was not discharged, then that money would remain in the possession and in the hands of the rich. So the money would remain in the hands of the rich, and the poor would not have any money. When zakah is given, there is a distribution of this wealth. The second benefit is economic benefits. Let me give you an example. A person gives zakah, the poor people now have zakah. So what they will do with that money is, they will go and they will buy those things that they need. So for example, they will buy clothing, they will buy food items, etc. So this has economic benefits, because when a poor person goes out and he or she buys food items, then obviously that is going to benefit the grocer or the supermarket. And this has a ripple effect on the entire chain. So the supermarkets, they will buy more from their suppliers, and ultimately this will impact on the farmers who will be harvesting and growing crops, etc. So this has economic benefits, and like this in clothing as well. If a poor person is going to buy clothing, the retailers will benefit, the producers of the clothing, the manufacturers, they will benefit, etc. So it has a domino effect. Elimination of poverty. If everybody gives their zakah as they should, there will be no poverty in the world. Unfortunately, we see poverty in the world because Muslims do not discharge their obligation correctly and properly. And lastly, reduction in crime. The majority of crime that takes place, especially in relation to robbery, stealing, theft, etc., that is done because of poverty. If people discharge their obligation of zakah, then that would ensure that the poor people had sufficient money and wealth to fulfill their basic needs. And this would impact on the rate of crime and the amount of crime that we see in society. So these are some of the social benefits of zakah. I thought it's important to mention this because this is something that is generally not covered when zakah is discussed. Next slide, who must give zakah? So the question is, who is it necessary upon to give zakah? Who does Islam say has to give zakah? First and foremost, the person has to be Muslim. If you are a non-Muslim, then you do not give zakah. Like, for example, you will not perform salah, or you are not obliged to perform salah if you are not a Muslim. Similarly, you are not obliged to fast in the month of Ramadan if you are not a Muslim. So only a Muslim is obliged to give zakah. Secondly, the person must be sane. The person must not be insane, i.e. mentally must be secure. Thirdly, the person must be an adult. So children, no matter how many savings they could have £50,000 in their account, but children themselves, they are not obliged to give zakah. And the fourth condition is that the person who is Muslim, who is sane, who is adult, that person must possess wealth equivalent to nisab. That person must possess wealth equivalent to nisab. It's a threshold that a person must reach for zakah to be fard upon that person. What that nisab is, there will be a separate slide on this, and we will discuss this a little bit later in more detail. So nisab, it's a very important term. I want you to remember that term because I will make reference to that term a few times while we go through the rest of this PowerPoint. Another term you need to be aware of is sahibul nisab. Sahibul nisab refers to a person who has this threshold of nisab. So if a person reaches that amount of money that is required in Sharia for zakah to become fard on that person is known as sahibul nisab. Moving on. So we've discussed who has to give zakah. The next question is, who can receive zakah? Who can receive zakah? Or in other words, who can we give our zakah to? That's the question. The Quran in Surah Tawbah mentions 8 categories of people who zakah can be given to. 8 categories. We're not going to go into all of the 8 categories because it will take 5 to 10 minutes and really it's not relevant to us. All we need to be aware of is the first 2 categories. Al-Fuqara, Al-Masakeen. Al-Fuqara is the plural of faqir. Okay? The translation I have given there is poor. The second category is Al-Masakeen, the plural of miskin, and the translation I have given here is destitute. The honest truth is that the English language cannot do justice to the translation of faqir and miskin. A faqir, Islamically, is a person who is extremely poor, very poor. Basically, this person struggles to even meet his or her basic needs, like clothing, shelter, food, etc. So that is a very, very poor person. So faqir is someone who is very poor. Miskin is a person Islamically who manages to fulfill his basic needs: food, shelter, clothing. But above and beyond these basic needs, that person does not have wealth that equates to nisab. We come back to that term, nisab. So a miskin is that person who does meet his or her basic needs, but above and beyond that, that person does not have sufficient wealth which equates to the nisab threshold. So simply put, faqir, very poor, can't meet basic needs. Miskin is poor, can meet the basic needs. However, that person does not have wealth above and beyond the basic needs that equates to nisab. I hope that is clear, because these two terms are quite important. Who cannot be given zakat? So the question here is, who can you not give your zakat to? So we've discussed who has to give zakat. We've discussed who we can give zakat to: the poor and the destitute, the faqir and the miskin. But the question now is, who can we not give zakat to? First and foremost, zakat cannot be given to a non-Muslim. So if you want to give charity to a non-Muslim individual, or you want to give charity to a non-Muslim organization, then you cannot give that charity from your allocated zakah amount. That will not be permissible. Zakah can only be given to Muslims. So if you want to give to non-Muslims, then you have to give from lillah money or sadaqah, which is optional charity. I hope that is clear. Secondly, certain members of the family of the Prophet ﷺ, they cannot be given zakah. Okay, so there are certain strands of the family of the Prophet ﷺ that cannot be given zakah. Again, this is not relevant to us really, so I won't go into the details. If you really want to know, you can get in touch with me and I will send you a little diagram which shows which particular strands of the family of the Prophet ﷺ cannot be given zakah. Thirdly, payers' descendants. Basically, I'm giving zakah. I cannot give my zakah to my children, to my grandchildren, to my great-grandchildren, all the way down. Okay, so anybody who is below me in my family tree, I cannot give zakah to. Number 4, payers' ascendants. I cannot give zakah to my parents, to my grandparents, etc., all the way up. So, concluding on points 3 and 4, you cannot give zakah down and you cannot give zakah up in terms of your family tree. Number 5, payer's partner. So I cannot give my zakah to my wife. My wife cannot give her zakah to me. So you cannot give your zakah to each other. And number 6 is, you cannot give zakah to somebody who is sahibun nisab. So somebody who already has money which reaches the threshold which Sharia stipulates as being rich, then a person like that cannot be given zakah. So these are the 6 categories of people who zakah cannot be given to. Let's move on. Conditions for validity of zakah. Conditions for the validity of zakah. For your zakah to be accepted by Allah, and when I say accepted, I mean that it is considered discharged, that you have fulfilled your obligation of zakah. These 3 conditions have to be met. Number 1, must have made the intention of giving zakah. Either at the time when you give it to the poor person, or, for example, to the charity that is collecting on behalf of the poor, or you made the intention of zakah when you separated that money from the rest of your wealth. So let me give you an example. Let's say I calculated my zakat today, and my zakat came to £500. So what I did was, I separated that money from the rest of my money, and I put it aside, and I made an intention that this money is zakat money. Now, when I now give that zakat to the poor person, or to a charity or representative of the poor person, if at that time I do not have the niyyah of zakah, that is fine, because I already had the niyyah of zakah when I separated the money. If, however, you did not make the niyyah of zakah at the time of separating the money, so you didn't separate it, you came to the masjid after Asr Salah, some organization was collecting zakah for some orphans, poor people, eligible for zakah. You just took out £20 from your pocket and you put it with the rest of the money, with the rest of the zakah money, then you must have intention of zakah at that time of giving, because you never had the intention when you were separating the money from the rest of the money. So it's very important that you are clear about this. When you are giving zakah, when you are separating the money, if your intention is there, that's sufficient. If, however, you did not make the intention at the time of separation, then at the time of giving, you must make niyyah of zakah. This is very, very important. Now, when you are giving the money as zakah to a poor person, you don't have to say to the poor person, this is zakah. You can hide that as a gift. They don't need to know that it's zakah. But your intention in your heart must be there that you are giving zakah. Let me just mention this mas'ala at this stage. Let's say you gave a poor person some money and you didn't make intention of zakah at all. You gave the money, you didn't make intention of zakah. Because, for example, you didn't know that that person was eligible for zakah. Later on, you found out that that person was eligible for zakah. The question is, will that money suffice in terms of your zakah? So can you say the £20 you gave to that poor person, even though you didn't make niyyah at that time, will that be counted as £20 given from your zakah? The answer for that is, if that poor person still has that £20, hasn't spent that money, then you have up until that point to make your intention. If, however, you gave that money and you didn't make the intention, later on you found out that this individual was eligible to receive zakah, but by then the money had already been spent by the poor individual, then it's too late. That money you cannot count as being given from your zakat funds. So that's the first condition. Second condition is the recipient must be eligible. This is quite obvious that when you are giving zakah, the person you are giving zakah to, that person must be eligible to receive zakah. In other words, we did the slide at the start, the person must either be a faqir or that person must be miskeen. In other words, very poor, they can't even meet their basic needs, or they meet their basic needs, but above and beyond that, they do not have funds equivalent to nisab. So that person must be eligible. And the third condition is that in zakah, you must make the recipient the owner of the money or whatever you are giving to them in zakah. In Arabic, this term is known as tamliq, and this condition is very, very important, very important. So whatever you are going to give to the poor person, that poor person must be made the owner of that thing or money. Let me give you an example. Some people with zakah funds, they make houses for poor people. A lot of UK Muslim charities do this. Costs £1,500, sometimes £2,000, sometimes £2,500, and you're providing really nice facilities for a poor family. So that's fine, you can give zakah for that. However, at the end of that, the family must be made the owner, or the person who is eligible to receive zakah in the family must be made owner of that house. What you can't do is make the house, let them live in the house, okay, and you don't make them owner of the house. If you do not make them the owner of the house, zakah will not be discharged. I'll give you another example. This is also a very important mas'ala. Let's say somebody gives another person £5,000 to borrow. So I've given Brother Ismail, let's say £5,000 to borrow. This £5,000, I've not made that person owner of that money. So I can't say to myself that this year's zakah, let's say if it's coming to £6,000, that I've already paid £5,000. Because the £5,000, I have not made that other person the owner of that money. Rather, I have simply lent that money to that individual. So I hope that makes sense. These three conditions are very important. The intention must be there. Secondly, the person you're giving zakah to must be eligible to receive the zakah. And thirdly, the person receiving the zakah must be made the owner of that zakah amount or item that you are giving. Next slide, what do we have to give zakah on? First and foremost, gold and silver. Gold and silver, and in gold and silver, it refers to all the gold and silver which is 50% or more gold and silver. So sometimes you get gold items, silver items, which are majority metal, and only a certain percentage, very little percentage, is actually gold or silver. So for an item of gold and silver to be zakatable, 50% of that item must be actual gold. So for example, or silver for that matter. So for example, 24 karat gold is usually considered pure gold. So anything you have in your possession which is 12 karat gold or more, that is zakatable. In the Hanafi school of fiqh, even gold and silver which is for personal use, that is also zakatable. Other schools of fiqh, they differ, but in the Hanafi school of fiqh, gold and silver, even when it is for personal use, it is zakatable. So women generally, they have a lot of gold or they have a lot of silver. If that gold or silver is 50% pure gold or silver or more, then that is zakatable, even though that gold or silver is for personal use. Secondly, cash. Any cash that a person has, that is also zakatable. And that cash could include money in the bank, money in the wallet, money at home in the cupboard, wherever you might put that money. It also includes money which you may have lent to somebody else. So let's say you have given a loan to your brother or your sister or your friend, then this, it will also be included in your cash. So let me give you an example. I've got £100 in my wallet, I've got £1,000 in my bank, and I've lent £5,000 to somebody else. My cumulative cash is 5,100 and whatever else was in my pocket. I forgot what I said, but £20 or £10. Let's move on. Number 3, business assets. Business assets. Business assets refers to stock. So if you are a person who has a business and you sell items, whether you are a retailer or you are a manufacturer, as long as you sell that item is zakatable. You have to give zakah on that item. But the condition here is that you must have made the intention of selling that item from the outset. So you must have made the intention of selling that item from the outset. If you have made an intention to sell an item from the outset, and it's a clear intention, you're not doubtful about it, or I might sell, I might not sell. It's a clear intention from the outset, that item will be considered business asset, and that will be considered stock. So let me give you an example. Let's say I bought a house, and my intention clearly from the start is to sell that house on. No other intention. So I'm going to buy it for 100,000 and I'm going to sell it hopefully for 120,000. That will come under business asset, and the whole value of that house will be zakatable. This is very important because my intention was from the outset very clear to sell. Let's say another example, I bought a house, my intention is not very clear. I might sell, I might put it on rent for a bit, or I might put it on rent for a year, then after a year I might just review my finances, my situation, and then take a decision accordingly. If that is the case, then the value of the house is not zakatable. So I'll repeat that again. An item is only considered a business asset if a person from the outset makes an intention, clear intention of selling an item. If your intention at the start is unclear, or your intention at the start was to sell, but then after a week or a month or 2 months you changed your intention, now you're not sure, or you're not going to sell anymore, then again this item will not be zakatable. So I hope that makes that clear. So generally, if you're a grocer, all your items in your shop which you're going to sell, that's what you bought them, you're going to sell them, you're not going to look after them for the rest of the year, that all these items will be zakatable. If you're a manufacturer of clothing, all these items, they are zakatable. Now, what many times people ask, especially businesses, that which value of the stock do we give zakah on? It's a very important question. So, for example, if you're a shop or you're a manufacturer, there are different types of prices. One is the cost price. So let's just take an example of a sweet shop. The owner of the shop buys all the chocolates and sweets and crisps and drinks and whatever at a certain price, which is the cost price. And then he or she will have his or her markup, and they then sell it at a certain price. So let's say, for argument's sake, a chocolate bar costs a shop owner 25 pence, and that shop owner sells that chocolate bar for 75 pence. So 25 pence is the cost price, 75 pence is the retail price. So the question here is, which price will the shopkeeper take into consideration when calculating the zakah on his or her stock? So the answer is, it's neither the cost price nor is it the retail price. Rather, it is the wholesale stroke lot selling price, which is usually somewhere in the middle. So you bought it for 25 pence, you sell to customers at 75 pence, but let's say you were going to get rid of all your stock in one go. You would usually get rid of that stock at 40, 50 pence. So that's the price that you will calculate your stock at, and you will give your zakah accordingly. So I hope that makes it clear that when you're calculating your business assets, the price you will look at is according to the wholesale or lot selling price. You've got another two here, livestock, animals. We don't live in India or third world countries. We don't generally have animals unless you have one in your backyard. Then you need to see a mufti, but we will miss that out. Number 5 is agricultural output. Again, we don't generally have agricultural output here. We don't generally have farmers who grow crops, etc. So we will miss this out. So in terms of this slide, first one, gold and silver. Second is the cash. And number 3 is business assets. Our zakatable assets must be one of these 3 things. Okay. Question which is generally asked nowadays, is zakah payable on pension? On pensions. There's 2. I'm not going to go into the details. Again, this is quite detailed, and you can read up quite a bit on the National Zakah Foundation website. Alternatively, you can go on the Al-Qalam website. They have various articles on this, but keeping it brief, basically, if your pension is the final salary pension, okay, where you have no choice, your employer deducts a certain amount from your salary every month, and it goes towards a pension pot. Basically, there is no zakah on that, because you will only see that money when the pension matures. So if your pension is the final salary pension scheme, no zakah. If, however, it is one of the other types, money purchase, personal pension, or defined contribution, this is where the employer almost empowers you, and you have a choice as to where you are going to invest this contribution of yours every month, or you agree mutually with your employer, and you have some sort of influence in this, then this zakah, this pension, this type of pension is zakatable. Okay, so this type of pension is zakatable. If it's a final salary, it is not zakatable. Now the question is, how much is zakatable in the second category? There is quite a bit of detail in this. I will not go into this, because otherwise we'll be here until iftar time, and I'm already hungry. If you go on the National Zakah Foundation website, you will see the details of this, and inshallah you will find your answer there. Alternatively, you can ask our Mufti Javid Sahib, who is mashallah also quite well versed in zakat related matters. Non-zakatable assets, i.e. items on which you will not give zakah, personal belongings, anything that belongs to you, clothing, cars, houses which you live in. So anything that you use, there is no zakat on. So you might have 5 houses, but you use all of them. They are not zakatable. You might have 5 cars, expensive cars parked outside your house, but you use them. Monday 1 car, Tuesday 1 car, Wednesday 1 car, Thursday 1 car, Friday 1 car, Saturday, Sunday you walk. So 5 days, you have 5 cars, again not zakatable because of personal belongings. You might have a really expensive sofa in your house, £5,000. It's not zakatable because you use it. So the bottom line is, anything you use for your personal use, then that is not zakatable. Number 2, business items. Business items is anything that you use to help you in your business. So for example, you might have a business of, let's take the example of a shopkeeper. He will have shelves to stock all his food items. He might have a till, or he might have other things. So anything he uses to help him in the business, you don't give zakat on that. Number 3, gemstones. You might have very precious gemstones which you have because you're a collector of gemstones, rubies, diamonds, etc. There is no zakat on that. They only become zakatable if your intention is to resell. So that is when they will become a business asset. So if you are a collector of gemstones, stones, etc., you will not give zakat on these. You will only give zakat on these if you are going to sell them on. Number 4, haram wealth. If you have haram wealth, for example, interest accruing in your bank account, there's no zakat on that. What you need to do is take that whole amount out and give it back to where it came from. Ideally, if you cannot do that, you give it in charity, but You will not get reward for that. But what you don't do is calculate zakah on any interest that you may accrue. So let's say somebody's got a high interest savings account and they've amassed in the year, or they've got interest of say £2,000, then that £2,000 you will not add into your cash when you're working out zakah. That money is not zakatable. That money has to go back to where it came from, or it just has to be given in charity. You will not calculate your zakah accordingly. The next one is debts. You don't give zakat on debts. So for example, let's say I owe somebody £10,000. So I owe somebody £10,000. If I owe somebody £10,000, then that I will not give zakat on that £10,000. Yes, it's a different matter that that other person will give zakat on that 10,000 because that money belongs to him or her. But myself, I will not give zakat on the debts. Rather, what will happen is I can subtract that debt from my total zakatable assets. I can subtract the amount of that debt from my zakatable assets. However, there is some detail in this. How much you can subtract? Generally, it is only that debt which is payable in the next 12 months. So let's say I have borrowed £10,000 from somebody. Out of that, only £5,000 is due in the next 12 months. So I can only deduct £5,000 of debt from my total zakatable assets. I cannot deduct the full £10,000. So the scholars are very clear on this. You can only deduct 12 months payments from your zakatable assets. This is in relation to a normal loan. When I say normal loan, I don't mean the interest-bearing loans from the bank. I mean loans that we give to our families, which are interest-free. Okay? Just mention here, sometimes your friend might say to you, or your family member might say to you that you can give me this money whenever you have the money. That will be considered after 12 months, so that's not deductible. If, however, somebody gives you money to borrow and they say that I will ask for it, I will give you 4 weeks notice. Whenever I need it, I will give you 4 weeks notice. That is deductible because that could be within 12 months. So that is deductible. However, if it's something where the person has clearly told you you can give it whenever you want, then that is not deductible. So again, I'll come back and I'll mention this. Debt is only debt. We're only talking about debt here, which is the normal debt, which is the debt which we give to family members. If, however, we're talking about mortgages now, then again, this is a little bit more trickier. If you have, there are two types of mortgage I'm going to talk about. One is the conventional mortgage, which you get from the normal banks. Question is that deductible from your zakatable assets? The answer is 12 months payments are deductible, but minus the interest that you are paying. So let's say, if I have got a conventional mortgage, which I don't, but if I did, and my yearly payments total to £6,000, but out of that, £2,000 was interest, and only £4,000 was going towards the capital repayment, then I can only deduct £4,000 from my zakatable assets. That's if you have a conventional mortgage. If you have an Islamic finance plan, and your Islamic finance plan is diminishing musharaka, you cannot deduct any amount. Now what the reasons are, it's technical. This is not the time to go into the technicalities, but the bottom line is conventional mortgages you can minus 12 12 months payments minus the interest. And for Islamic mortgages, if we can say that, then if it's diminishing musharaka, then you cannot deduct any amount. Student loans, you only have to pay back student loans once you start working after you've graduated and you start earning £21,000. Until then, you cannot minus student loans from your zakatable assets. So let's say somebody is 19 years old or 20 years old, they've got student loan, they cannot minus that from their zakatable assets because they do not have to pay that until they graduate and they start earning £21,000. When that time comes, then that amount can be deducted again minus the interest payments. Let's move on. What is meant by nisab? What is meant by nisab? This is the minimum amount of wealth, savings, etc. in one's possession, in excess of one's essential needs, such as clothing, that makes zakah fard on a person. So it's a minimum amount of money I have to have, you have to have, above and beyond your basic needs. If you reach that minimum amount and threshold, zakah becomes obligatory on you. You must give zakah. Okay? And the next slide will hopefully explain what this is. Now, these are the two nisab values which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam specified during his time, because there were only two currencies prevalent at that time. You either dealt in gold, dinar, or you dealt in silver, which is dirham. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam stipulated two different nisab values for gold and silver. Okay, now that equates to, in gold, £3,877.99. That is correct as of today, which is the 26th of April 2020. Silver, it comes to £238.82. Now the question naturally arises, which nisab value do I have to take into consideration? Do I take the big value here, or do I take the small value here? Do I take the gold value, or do I take the silver value? The simple answer is, if you only have gold assets, nothing else, no other zakatable asset, then you will take this value. If you have only silver, or you have a mixture of zakatable assets, so you have some gold, you have some silver, you have some business assets, so you've got a mixture. And let's be honest, 99.999% of the population and the Muslim population falls into this second category. So if you are a person who has mixed assets, then you will take the nisab value of silver, which is £238.82, correct as of today. So let me give you an example. I have a mixture of gold, silver. I've got cash at home, but I don't have any gold. I don't really have any silver, but I've got generally a bit of cash at home without giving any private secrets away. So because I fall into the mixed asset individual, my nisab value will be £238.82. What does that mean? That means that after I have taken into consideration my essential needs, like food, like clothing, like shelter, if I have £238.82 or more, then I, in Islam, am considered rich. I am sahibun nisab and I have to give zakah. If above and beyond my basic needs, I had less than that amount, then I would not be sahibun nisab, I would not be obliged to give zakah. I hope that makes sense. Now I'll just mention here, these figures I've taken from the Wifaqul Ulama website. Wifaqul Ulama is a group of scholars, mashallah, some reputable scholars on their board. I know many of them quite well. They actually have an app as well, which you can download from the App Store, Google Store, etc. They also have a website, and every day these figures are updated. So I would definitely urge you that you also download this app, or you go onto their website. Okay, when do I calculate zakah? When do I calculate zakah? You need to calculate your zakah on the first day you became Sahibul Nisab. Sorry, you don't calculate zakah on that day, you identify that date. Okay? So you identify the date, the first date when you first possessed Nisab. So let's say, for argument's sake, in my life, the first time I had money equivalent to Nisab after my basic needs was the 1st of Muharram 1435. That is my Zakah anniversary date. So, in addition to being adult, Muslim, sane, on the 1st of Muharram 1435, I had wealth equivalent to Nisab. That is going to be my Zakah anniversary date. I need to remember that date. It doesn't mean I give Zakah on that date. So I won't give Zakah on the 1st of Muharram 1435. That's the first day I have got enough money which is equivalent to Nisab. I need to remember that date. Then he says, if you can't remember that date, then you make an estimate. Many people, they can't remember. That's the honest truth. You try to make the best estimate you can. If you cannot estimate, then you simply pick a date and you stick to that. Many people, they have a date, 1st of Ramadan, 10th of Ramadan, something like that, because they simply can't remember the first day when they became Sahibul Nisab. So if you can't, then it's not really your fault. Inshallah, Allah will forgive you. It's the month of mercy. But you fix a date and you stick to that. Now remember what I said. Personally, I became Sahibul Nisab on the 1st of Muharram 1435. 1st of Muharram 1435. That doesn't mean that I give my zakah on that day. No. I will now check the following year. 1st of Muharram 1436. If on the 1st of Muharram 1436, one full lunar year after I became Sahibul Nisab, I still have wealth equivalent to or more than Nisab, I will now calculate and give zakah on the 1st of Muharram 1436. So when you become Sahibul Nisab, you don't give zakah. After you become Sahibul Nisab, you have to wait for a year. And on the exactly a year after, you check your zakatable assets again. If your zakatable assets are equivalent to Nisab, you will then give zakah. The next question is, can your zakah anniversary change? The answer is yes. This will explain it. I hope you can see this slide clearly, because this slide is very, very important. Now, if you look here, I have got here figures, £100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, etc. The Nisab value are estimated at 250. Okay, we know it's £238 and the odd pence, but I've given a rough estimation here, it's £250. Now, I've given an example here. In my life, the first time in my life I reached the Nisab threshold was 1st of Muharram 1435. Okay, that was the first time. Now, I will not give zakah here. I will wait for a year. Then I've come to the 1st of Muharram 1436, and mashallah, there has been an increase in my wealth. I only had 250 here, suddenly I have £800. Okay? Now on the 1st of Muharram, 1436, I have £800. And this £800 is above and beyond my essential needs, and it's above and beyond the nisab threshold. So now I will give zakah on the £800, which is 2.5% of that. My maths isn't very good, you can calculate that for me. So whatever the 2.5% is on the £800, that's what you will give zakah on. But you will give it 1 year after you became Sahibul Nisab. Now, that's straightforward. Now what happens is, another year comes. Remember, you've got to remember your zakah anniversary date. You've got to remember your zakah anniversary date. It is very, very important. Let's say the next year now, 1437, 1st of Muharram, I calculated my assets, zakatable assets, and my debts. And I realized that I only have £200 excess. Now, if I only have £200 excess, that is below the nisab threshold of £250. So that means I don't have to give zakah. I don't have to give zakah. But then what happens is, I reach the nisab threshold again on the 1st of Safar, 1437. Note how I'm using the lunar calendar. We can't go by the solar calendar, the Gregorian calendar here. We go by the lunar calendar. So on the 1st of Muharram, I had less than 250, so I won't give zakah. But then a month later, alhamdulillah, I've reached the nisab value again. So now, this is my new zakah anniversary date. This is what I mean when I say your zakah anniversary date can change. So this is my new zakah anniversary date. I won't give zakah here. I will not give zakah here on the 1st of Safar, 1437. Now again, I will wait for a year. And then on the 1st of Safar, 1438, I will check whether I have funds equivalent to or more than zakah. And alhamdulillah here, the 1st of Safar, I have £500, which is above and beyond the nisab value of 250, so I will give zakah. So this graph here, this chart here, is to highlight to you that zakah anniversary dates can change. I hope that is clear. This is one of the last few slides now, inshallah, we're coming to the end. How do you calculate your zakah now? Basically, you will calculate and total up all your zakatable assets. So all the cash you may have, gold and silver, all the business assets that you have as per the wholesale lot price. You calculate all that, then you minus your debts from that. And remember, we explained debts, you can only minus debts that are payable in the next 12 months. So any debts that are payable in the next 12 months, you can minus that. You will get a figure and then you times that by 0.025. If you're somebody who is very old school like me, I calculate it like this. I total the zakatable assets up, then I minus the total debts, and then I do divide it by 100 times 2.5. But I'm not a very good mathematician, that's why I do that. If you're a good mathematician, people tell me that you can simply do this calculation and you will get the same answer. Now to finish off, I've got 2 case studies. I will just do one. So that people hopefully can understand this from a practical angle. Let's go through this person's assets. This person has cash worth £20,000. Mashallah, he's got a lot of money. I need to find out who this person is. So this person has got cash £20,000. That is zakatable assets. Okay, that is zakatable. Secondly, he's got a house which is worth £200,000. But that is something that he uses. It's a personal belonging. That's not zakatable, so you won't count that. The next one is a car. He's got a car worth £5,000. Again, personal belonging, you don't count that in your zakat calculation. Then that person has got gold and silver worth £5,000. Okay? Again, that is zakatable assets, so you will calculate that. So far, we've got £20,000 and you've got an additional £5,000, that comes to £25,000. What about loan to a friend? So this person has given a loan to their friend at £4,000, that is also zakatable, that comes under cash. So now he's got a total of £29,000. He's got a house on rent. The house is worth £150,000. A house on rent is not zakatable. A house is only zakatable if it was bought with the clear intention of reselling. So this £150,000 worth of house is not zakatable because that house is on rent. So still, the zakatable assets are £29,000. Business assets, whatever this chap's business is, he's got £10,000 of zakatable business assets. So that comes to now a total of £39,000, and he's got shares. And these shares were bought with the intention, clear intention of resale, not with the intention of enjoying the dividends and things like that. We're assuming here these shares were bought £15,000 and I'm going to sell them straight away. So that gives you a total of £54,000 of zakatable assets. Remember, when we calculate zakat, we've got zakatable assets on one side. You ought to deduct your debts from the zakatable assets. So what debts does this person have? He has a debt of £5,000 to the suppliers. He has a debt to his family members of £10,000. And we're going to assume here that this £10,000 is payable in the next 12 months. He's also got bills to pay. Bills have landed, he's got to pay these bills, they've already come, £1,000. He's got a conventional mortgage, okay? He's got a conventional mortgage of £150,000. Of this, the annual installment towards the capital repayment is £5,000. So we will add 5 plus 10, 15, plus 1 is 16, plus 5 here, because we don't add the interest, remember. So that's £21,000. So the calculation will go as follows: £54,000, which is zakatable assets, minus £21,000, which is the debt, which is payable in the next 12 months, times that by 0.025, and that gives you a total amount of £825 zakah payable. £825 zakah payable. So I hope this case study kind of like helped you. I did do another one here, but unfortunately we don't have time to go through this. In this example, what I did was I totaled up the assets, they came to £29,000, and I totaled up the debts which were payable in the next 12 months, they came to £42,000. In this scenario, your debts are greater than your assets. Okay, you are in minus of £13,000. So in this scenario, there will be no zakah payable. Zakah is only payable when your net zakatable assets figure is a plus figure, a positive figure. In other words, your zakatable assets are more than your debts. If your debts are greater than your zakatable assets, then zakah will not be payable. Just one last thing I want to mention. Going back to the previous slide, many people ask, how can I find out the value of my gold or silver, especially the women who have gold at home? But it's straightforward. You need to first weigh your gold. You need to weigh your gold in grams or ounces. And then, like I mentioned before, Moulana, mashallah, they've done a fantastic job. They actually give the value of gold and silver every day. The live prices are given on their app stroke website. So then whatever your weight of gold or silver is, you will times that by the price per gram or price per ounce, and that will give you the value of your gold and silver. I hope this PowerPoint presentation was helpful and it clarified maybe any questions that you had in your mind. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us the ability to fulfill the obligation of zakah to the best of our ability. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan.